November 12th. Pinocchio. Slugger. Pinocchio, as you know, was not always a real boy. Once he was a puppet, and before that he was a log, and before that he was the trunk of a tall shady tree. But that's of no great importance to our story. It's simply to remind you that Pinocchio was not always a boy, and that to him, being a real boy was indeed a dream come true. Our story, in fact, takes place sometime later, when Pinocchio was walking home from school one day. He had just been thinking to himself of what real boy play he would enjoy that afternoon. Climbing trees or skimming stones, or maybe just stomping in the mud, when suddenly he spied a whole group of real boys gathered in a field just down the road. "What are you doing?" asked Pinocchio. "Playing baseball," said a red-haired boy. Baseball? Pinocchio hadn't heard of that game before, but it sounded like fun. "Can I play?" he asked. The boys nodded. "Did you bring a glove?" one boy asked. "A glove?" said Pinocchio. "That's okay," said the boy. "You can use mine while I bat." He tossed a big brown leather glove into Pinocchio's hands. "You can play first base." Pinocchio grinned. First base? That sounded important. This game was going to be fun. Now, if he could just work out which base was first. Luckily, the other boys ran off to their bases, leaving just one empty. Pinocchio trotted out to the dusty square. Then he waited to see what came up. Luckily, the other boys... Pinocchio grinned. First base. That sounded important. This game was going to be fun. Now, if he could just work out which base was first. Luckily, the other boys ran off to their bases, leaving just one empty. Pinocchio trotted out to the dusty square. Then he waited to see what came next. Batter up! Whoosh! Crack! It didn't take long. One fast pitch, and before Pinocchio knew it, a ball was sailing over his head, and a tall boy was running full speed at him. Ah! Pinocchio screamed, covering his face with his big glove. The boy was safe, and Pinocchio moved to the right field. But on the very next pitch, where should the ball fly but up, 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 and down to right field? This time, Pinocchio tried to catch it, but it landed with a plop on the grass behind him. But Pinocchio never gave up, and when it was finally his turn to bat, he stepped into the batter's box and held his head high. To Pinocchio's surprise, the bat felt strangely natural in his hands, almost like a part of his old wooden self. He watched the pitcher carefully, and on the first pitch, crack! He sent the ball high and away into the sky. Hooray! The boys cheered. A slugger had been born, and a real boy had learned a new game.